I used to think power protected people like Sean Diddy Combs. That no matter what he did, who he hurt, or what got buried, the world would just keep spinning in his favor. And for a long time, it did. I kept my mouth shut, not out of loyalty, but because I knew the game. He had protection. From the streets, from the suits, from something higher up. And people like me, we were just the cleanup crew. But now I see the walls crumbling. I see his name where it never used to appear, next to federal warrants, sealed indictments, ugly headlines. And it makes you wonder, maybe the silence we were all forced to hold, maybe it's finally starting to break. So yeah, I'm gonna speak. You don't have to believe me, but you should listen. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know where you're watching from. Do you think it's karma or something bigger unraveling? And if you're still here, like, share, and subscribe, because what I'm about to say will change your perspective on everything you think is the truth. I wasn't always the villain in this story. People talk like I was the devil behind the wheel, like I pulled the trigger or made the call. But the truth is, I was just close enough to the fire to get burned, not close enough to control it. I built an empire out of noise, out of pain, out of brothers who had nowhere else to go. I gave Pac a home when everyone else wanted him silenced or sold off. And yeah, we were loud. We were messy. But we were real. He wasn't real. He was polished, branded, protected. His power didn't come from the streets. It came from knowing who to kneel to when the cameras weren't around. I saw that early on. The way he moved, the way doors opened for him that stayed locked for the rest of us. He didn't build power. He inherited it. And behind that smile was something colder than anything I ever saw in the Bloods, Crips, or crook cops. That man knew how to survive, even if it meant stepping over bodies to do it. I was running death row when the pressure started building. You could feel it, like something was coming. Pac was speaking too loud, saying things that didn't belong in songs anymore. Political things, revolutionary things, the kind of truth that makes powerful people uncomfortable. And Diddy wasn't just sweating the East Coast, West Coast drama. He was sweating Pac directly. The man was shining too bright, making too much sense, too much noise. And when men like that don't shut up, people like Diddy don't sleep easy. I started noticing the shifts. Calls that used to come daily stopped. Events that used to be shared across both coasts suddenly had tighter lists. And then there was the paranoia. Diddy doubled his security, tripled it. Made sure no one knew where he was until he was already gone. That's when I realized something bigger was happening, something I wasn't part of. And then Vegas happened. You all know the story. Pac and I in the car. Shots fired, I get grazed. He gets hit. The world mourns, the headlines scream, gang violence. And just like that, the movement Pac was building dies on Las Vegas asphalt. But you don't know what came before. The energy. The silence before the shots. The tension in the air, like everyone knew what was about to go down. Except me. I spent years pretending I didn't see what I saw. That the things I felt weren't real. That Diddy wasn't involved. That he couldn't be. But you don't move like he did unless you know something's coming. And I'd seen that look in a man's eyes before. For years I held it in. Said nothing. Not to the press or the streets. Not to the suits who tried to pin everything on me. But when they picked up Keith D, a man who's been skating around the truth longer than most of you have been alive, I felt something shift. That wasn't a coincidence. And then came the headlines. Federal raid at Diddy's homes. LA and Miami. Same time. Same force. No leaks, no warning. That's how they move when they already know what they're coming for. I sat back and watched. Watched his camp scatter like roaches under a spotlight. Lawyers scrambling. Phones disconnected. Staff going quiet. That's when I knew his shield was gone. Diddy spent years untouchable. because he wasn't just protected by lawyers. He was protected by people, institutions, folks who needed him clean so their money stayed clean. But when those people stop answering your calls, you're done. I knew what this meant. If Diddy wasn't safe anymore, maybe I could finally speak without dying for it. And then I got word that the Keefe D case had a new angle, that they were finally connecting the dots to the people who financed the hit. That's when it all snapped into place. I remembered things I'd buried. Conversations, transfers, the way Diddy acted the week before Pac got shot. Twitchy, distant, whispering into burners like someone was chasing him. He knew what was coming. He didn't pull the trigger. No, he paid the man who paid the man who pulled it. That's how you stay clean in this world. You move through shadows, through ghosts. So when I sat down and recorded what I knew, I didn't do it to save myself. I'm already buried. I did it because the man who made this mess is finally standing where I stood. Alone, exposed, and cracking. And if the world's finally ready to hear it, then I'm finally ready to tell it. I didn't plan to say anything. Not ever. I figured if I kept my mouth shut long enough, the past would stay where I left it. Dead, buried, and forgotten. But when they cuffed Keefe D and dragged his old ass into the spotlight, I knew the ground was shifting. And when they raided Diddy's homes like he was just some street-level dealer, I felt it. That tightness in the air, like thunder just waiting for a crack. You gotta understand, Diddy wasn't the guy pulling triggers. He was the guy who made the mess look clean. That's how he stayed on top. Always clean, always smiling, never close enough to the fire to get burned. But I've been burned. I still smell the smoke, so I started talking. Quiet at first. A few calls. Then a sit down with a man who owed me more than favors. I told him what I remembered. Not the story the papers ran, not the lies the labels printed. The real thing. The night Pac got hit, I was in the car. Everyone knows that part. What they don't know is what happened before. The meetings, the messages, the sudden silence from people who used to call every day. I'd felt it building. I didn't know who was pulling strings, but I knew money had moved. Big money, quiet money. The kind that doesn't show up in court but leaves bodies in the street. I never saw Diddy hand over cash. That's the truth, but I know who got paid. I know what set got called. And I know that kind of green only changes hands for one reason: to make somebody disappear. He didn't say it himself. He never would. That's how he operated. Always through someone else. A middleman here, a whisper there. But I heard enough, and I saw more. Too much. You think I stayed silent all these years because I was scared of prison? No. I was already living in one. I stayed quiet because Diddy was protected. Not just by lawyers or industry people. I'm talking about real protection. People in high places. People who could make you vanish without a trace. And me, I had my own demons. I wasn't looking to die with a bullet in my back and a lie in my mouth. But now, that protection's gone. You can see it. The walls are falling around him. The lawsuits, the sealed docs leaking, the panic calls. He's scrambling, just like I was back when the feds first started sniffing around me. And that's when it hit me. Maybe it's time. Maybe the weight I've been carrying, it ain't mine to hold anymore. Because I've watched him dance on Pac's grave for too long. Smile on stages. Toast champagne like he didn't know what it cost. But he knew. He always knew. You don't pay a man $1 million unless you want blood. And Diddy. He paid, not just with money, but with something darker. Something colder. And that night in Vegas, that wasn't just a hit. That was a message. A ritual. A warning to anybody who thought they could speak too loud, shine too bright, or step outside the lines. Pac did all three, and now that the same people who covered Diddy's tracks are tearing him down, I ain't got a reason to protect him no more. So I'm gonna tell it like it is. And if you're listening, you'd better be ready for what comes next. I said it before and I'll say it again. I didn't see the cash change hands, But I know what a payout smells like. I know the way a room goes quiet when something's already been decided. There was a number floating around that year. 1 million. Not 500,000, not 250, 1 million. That's what was allegedly offered to handle it. Not to scare him, not to send a message, to erase him. And that money didn't come from the streets. It came from boardrooms. From somebody who wanted the problem handled with enough distance to stay clean. Somebody who knew how to disappear behind paperwork and silence. You don't have to believe me. I wouldn't blame you. Too many lies been told already. But I sat across from men who were in the room when the decision was made. Some of them are dead now. Some of them pretending they weren't even there. But I remember the looks, the fear, the way nobody would say Pac's name unless they were whispering. And the one name nobody ever questioned was Sean. He had the reach. He had the motive. But more than that, he had the confidence that nothing would ever touch him. He had lawyers on speed dial, labels in his pocket, government names in his phone. He wasn't worried about beef. He was worried about exposure. And Pac was about to crack it all open. Not just the industry, the game, the machine, the rituals, the way this whole world runs on silence and sacrifice. So the order was simple: shut him up before he opens too many eyes. And what I've come to realize now, after all these years in a cell, is that I was never the threat. I was just the distraction. I was the red rag, the loudmouth, the crash waiting to happen. They needed someone to blame, someone angry enough to look guilty, even if he didn't fire a single shot. Someone who wouldn't be believed, even if he screamed the truth from the rooftops. And Diddy, he played that role beautifully, smiling, dancing, crying on stage about a man he helped bury. That's what haunts me. Not that I didn't see it, but that I let it happen. That I took the weight while he built an empire off a grave. And if you've been listening this long, hit that like button and subscribe. Not for me. I've got nothing left to gain. But because if people don't hear this, it'll get buried all over again, just like it did back then. I don't care what happens to me after this. I've already done my time, paid my price. But him, he's just now starting to feel what it's like to have the walls close in. He thought the suits would protect him forever. He thought his parties, his labels, his NDA-fueled empire would keep the blood off his hands. But blood has a way of finding daylight, and this story, the one they told you, was about rap beef and gang pride. It was never about that. It was about control and the cost of breaking it. Do you really think this all started and ended with Pac? Or was he just the first one they couldn't control? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes I sit here and think about how easy it is to forget a man once he's gone. How quickly the world moves on when the headlines fade and the candles burn out. But Pac, they couldn't erase him. No matter how many documentaries they made, how many lies they packaged into clean little stories. He stayed alive, in spirit, in message, in the way people still flinch when you mention his name. Because somewhere deep down, they know what happened to him wasn't just a murder. It was a silencing. And it wasn't just about rap. It wasn't about East Coast versus West. That was the cover, the show, the cheap distraction for people too busy watching the drama to see the architecture behind it. Pac was breaking something. He was asking questions nobody wanted asked. About power, about ownership, about truth. And men like Diddy, they knew what came next if that voice kept rising. So they moved. They made sure to turn me into the villain. I fit the role. I was loud. I was easy to hate. I had blood on my hands already, even if it wasn't that blood. So while they painted me as the monster, Diddy got to walk away clean, build his empire on silence. But that silence was bought. It was built on payoffs, threats, and the comfort of knowing that some men were never supposed to speak. Some of us were meant to carry the weight, while others toasted champagne and kissed rings. Even now, I see the way people hesitate when his name comes up. They still think he's untouchable, but you can feel it, the shift, the way his world's cracking. The walls are thinner now, the shadows shorter. The same hands that once protected him are pulling back, piece by piece. And maybe that's why I'm speaking now. Not because I think it'll change what happened. Nothing will. Pac's not coming back. My years are gone. My blood's already on the ledger. But maybe there's still something to be gained from dragging the truth out into the open, even if it limps. Because if it happened to him, it can happen again. And if you're watching this thinking it was just music, just beef, just bad timing, you're still not seeing it. This was about power, about who gets to speak and who gets silenced, about how far the rich will go to keep their names clean, while the rest of us drown in the dirt they leave behind. And if Pac was the first, he won't be the last. They don't kill you with bullets anymore. They kill you with silence, with erasure, with sealed court documents and contracts that cost more than your soul. That's why I'm talking now. Not for revenge, not for attention, but because the blood doesn't wash off and the ghosts don't leave you alone just because you survive. The game don't love anybody. That's something I learned too late. I used to think there were rules. That if you played your position, kept your people fed, took your hits in silence, they'd let you keep what you built. But now, I see it clear. There are no rules, just layers. And once you outlive your usefulness, those same hands that protected you, they tighten around your throat. That's what we're seeing now with Sean. All those years of power, fame, the illusion of control, it's unraveling. Not because he changed, but because the people who once needed him don't need him anymore. And the truth, they never did. He wasn't the king. He was the cleaner, the runner, the one that used to move things quietly while the world danced to his records. Now the money's drying up. The press ain't scared. The lawsuits are stacking. And the walls that once kept his sins hidden are paper thin. You think it's a coincidence that right as the Keefe D case gets traction, right when my voice finally makes its way out of this cell, the feds start raiding every door he's ever touched. Nah, this isn't random. It's a reckoning. And it ain't just about Pac anymore. It's about how long people like us have been used, about how they build empires off our backs, then leave us to rot once the blood gets too thick to hide. They left me in here to be forgotten. They painted me as the villain, and maybe I was in some ways. I've never claimed to be innocent, but I wasn't the only one in the room when those decisions got made. And I sure as hell wasn't the only one who saw what it cost. Now the same silence I protected is collapsing under its own weight. People are talking. Names are leaking. Girls who were gagged by contracts are speaking on record. The machine that once held everything together, it's coming apart, bolt by bolt, and maybe that's justice. Or maybe it's just another cycle. Because make no mistake, if they find a way to bury all this again, they will. They've done it before. But this time feels different. This time the whispers are too loud. The cracks too wide. This time, people ain't just watching a scandal. They're watching a blueprint. Seeing how these men bought their freedom, cleaned their crimes, and danced over the graves of those who couldn't afford silence. It's not just Diddy on trial. It's the whole system that let him become what he did. And if you're listening, really listening, don't stop here. Share it. Speak it. Tear open the stories they want sealed. Because if this all fades into memory without consequence, then Pac really did die for nothing. I don't expect forgiveness. Not from the people watching. Not from Pac's family. Not even from myself. I didn't come here to clear my name. I came here to say the part that nobody else would. The part they told me to take to the grave. But you get to a point, locked away long enough, forgotten long enough, and the truth starts to rot inside you. You either let it out or let it kill you slow. So this is me letting it out. I was there, I felt it building. I watched the moves get made, not in boardrooms, not in music studios, but in back channels and midnight calls, and coded transfers that never touched paper. I was part of the silence that got Pac killed, and for years, I played the role they gave me. Loud, violent, disposable. But I'm still here, and now so is the truth. You want to know what haunts me most? It's not the gunshots, not the blood. It's the fact that the world kept spinning like none of it ever mattered. Like his death was just another headline, like Diddy's rise wasn't built on that moment. But now the cracks are showing. The empire's bleeding. The silence isn't holding like it used to. And if there's ever been a moment to speak, this is it. Because I'm tired of carrying ghosts. And maybe, just maybe, if enough people hear this, the next one won't have to. Tell me this. Do you think Diddy's finally paying for what he did? Or is this just the first thread being pulled in something much bigger? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know how far you think this goes, and if this story made you sit back and rethink what you thought you knew. Like, share, and subscribe, because the deeper you dig into this world, the darker it gets. And I've only scratched the surface.